Assalamu alaikum, مساء الخير على الجميع, and would like to welcome all of you to our today's workshop, which is going to be about professional writing, presented by Mr. Ridwaan Levi. So thank you, Mr. Ridwaan, and the floor is yours. You may start now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Basim, for the introduction. And welcome everyone to our professional writing workshop today. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. Is the sound all good?
Yep.
Okay, fine. Okay, so our professional writing workshop, we are going to do an overview of professional writing because it's such a huge idea, it's such a huge thing that we have to look at. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Ridwaan Levi, and I'm here today to present the professional workshop writing. You can find me at the AWC at the Academic Writing Center at KAU in the Eli. So what is it about? Professional writing? It's a style of written communication that we usually use in the workplace, okay? And it's used by professionals such as business people, professors, doctors, lawyers. Well, a lot of people in the corporate world, of course, have to use it. And why do we have to use it is simply to make informed decisions. Now, when we think of the word professional, we sometimes become, oh, it sounds so professional. It sounds a bit hard, but it's quite simple, right? So we have to deal with professional writing. We have to deal with business emails, business plans. We have to deal with a lot of things in our daily lives, especially in our jobs, wherever we are, in whatever field we are working in. So we have to be clear about how we write our professional documents, right? Just a quotation from when we keep on writing, a lot of people have sometimes a block when they want to write. They put the pen down or they touch the keyboard and think, how am I going to start this? How am I going to word this? Well, like Stephen King said, to quote him, good writing is often about letting go of fear and affection. And another famous English writer, Ernest Hemingway, he said, as a writer, you should not judge, you should understand. So we can take that in many different contexts there. But just the main thing to remember is when we write professionally, we have to write from a professional viewpoint. When we write non-professionally, we usually write from our hearts. People who write a novel or a story or a blog even, they write with their feelings and they involve their emotions. With professional writing, we actually don't do that. So, what is it about then? It's all about conveying information in the workplace. And we all work, especially during this time, we all work online. We all work via email, via workshops, online meetings, and all of that. But the writing is quite important to be clear. So it is very different from creative writing, like novels. Novels and stories are meant to entertain, right? And then professional writing, therefore, it seeks to inform, to persuade, and to instruct. Is everybody clear so far on that?
Yes.
All right. So when we inform, of course, we give information, and of course, it's important that we give the correct information. We persuade, we make sure that people get our point of view, and we instruct by giving concise or correct, detailed instructions, right? Many times we get emails, or many times wherever we are at whatever company or institution we work at, we receive instructions and it's not always that clear. So what happens is there's messages or emails or meetings going back and forth until everybody is clear on something, but we don't need to get to that point. So when we look at what tools do we need to know in professional writing, so of course we know there are many tools that we can use. We want to get our message across. to our target audience. And our target audience are the people who we know they are going to read our writing, whether it's a letter, a business plan, a memo, or an email. So, what we will look at today, we will look at what we need in order to write professionally. And there are two main things that we need is grammar and writing style. Those are the two main things. So for our grammar side, grammar and punctuation is always very important. I don't think we need to go through. We've been through workshops and we know most of these things, but we will be surprised how grammar and punctuation sometimes messes up a professional document. And of course, we need to reference the material. We need to reference material to refer to if we ever need it. So we can go back to check it up. Punctuation and particles to keep sentences from dangling. And this happens a lot in writing when people write long sentences. Okay, so sometimes we leave out particles or we leave out punctuations. The best use of adjectives and adverbs, of course, is very important. And effectively, we should use the three cases of pronouns. And remember, bad grammar and punctuation makes our writing unprofessional. The other thing that we need is a writing style. Right? Each and every one of us have different writing styles, right? But we need to learn how to change our writing style. So sometimes we cannot keep on writing in the same style for the same audience, or it depends on what kind of document I'm writing about. What do I want to say? Who do I want to say it to? And of course, we have to know our audience before we write. And be a master of email etiquette. It's quite important. And let us employ effective word choice. Sometimes the word that we choose may not be an effective word. So those that we will look at in this overview, we will look at what is the best way to look at how what we can use and what we cannot use, tips of writing professionally, and so on. So what will I be writing? Well, as I said earlier on at the beginning, professional writing takes place in any business context. So a professional writing course, it consists of so many professional and technical writing discourses. That is why we're doing an overview of professional writing. But when we work for a corporate company, we have to follow the rules of that company or that institution. Many big corporate companies send their management teams on business writing courses because they have to follow the protocol of that particular company. In certain parts of the world, they use certain types of words or certain types of explanations. So there are so many. I mean, we'll probably have to workshop every separate one. For example, emails, we have to look at that. Business writing is another aspect. Another discourse is research proposals. So those are things we will look at in detail. So let's look at some of the most common professional writing, types of common professional writing. General business letters, inquiry letters, sales letters, reports. We had a workshop, I think, 2 modules ago, report writing, professional emails, business plans, research proposals. I think this one would suit us in our context right here at university. And of course, we had one, I think, 2 modules ago as well, resumes or CVs, curriculum vitae, and cover letters. Any questions so far? Is everybody still okay there? All right. So academic writing versus professional writing. One of the biggest differences is that academic writing is done mostly to showcase your research, and expertise in a specific area or a topic of interest. I'm sure many of you have done academic writing, right, or research, submitted research papers, and that is to showcase your expertise in a specific area of interest or topic of interest. Professional writing, on the other hand, is done to influence or to convince someone of something. Usually, we would write a professional document in a business setting. So, a professional document in a business setting would be to project an idea to colleagues in your company, wherever you work, or at an institution where you are based at, and of course, to propose a project. Has anyone proposed any projects before in the job that you are in or at university now? Has anyone proposed any projects before? Nobody? All right. Ilham, yes, you said you have proposed a project. How did that go for you? All right. Reham says it was good. All right. Just remember, you have the AWC at your disposal, at your fingertips. You are always welcome to make use of the AWC for anything, for any kind of assistance with your writing. So let's look at ways to improve our professional writing skills. There are many different ways. We're just looking at some of the typical ways that people would use to improve professional writing skills. The first one is to know your facts, right? That's point number one. To know your facts, if the data you share is not reliable, you will easily lose credibility. We know that, right? And sometimes we forget to do proper research, or we think we research properly, but we just mention things and our credibility will fall there. And many websites quote inaccurate or incorrect data. This is quite a very useful thing that we have today, the internet, but it can also become quite dangerous, right? Some sites even spread falsehoods intentionally, right? I'm sure that if you type in anything, you can find anything, whether it's about life or people or any kind of topic, you will find it. But sometimes it's not accurate. So let us always focus on official institutional pages, such as those run by public entities, educational institutions like a university, and well-established corporations. Let's always get our facts from reliable sources. That's quite important to look at. So the facts is important to know. The second one is to be concise. When we're writing for colleagues or clients, everybody is short on time. We know that, right? Nobody likes to read a long thing, especially work related. We like to read little things. We like to read long stories or books for entertainment, or sometimes nowadays we like to read um, stuff on the internet, or we like to read what is this called? Social media. People post all kinds of things, and we take all the time because that's for entertainment. You know, when we have entertainment, we have all the time in the world. But if it's for work related or for study purposes, we don't want to spend a lot of time reading things, right? Be that as it may, when we do professional writing, let's remember that everyone is short on time. So, in order to get and to keep people's attention, we need to be concise. Shorter items are likely to be read on a mobile device, right? Because people are in a hurry, people are on the move all the time. And let's use short sentences and paragraphs to keep text readable. Okay, and we put our main point in the first sentence, go straight to the point. Some people tend to write an email or an instruction or a business memo in a company and they beat about the bush. And then finally, by paragraph two, you might find out, okay, this is what they want. But the main thing is to get to the main point immediately. And of course, for longer reports, We use section headings, formatting tools, bold font, and so on, and we draw attention to the key ideas. We use bullet points, we use numbers, we use dashes, and we draw attention to the key ideas. But of course, let's not go overboard there. The third one, we need to look at potential misunderstandings. So when we complete a draft, how often do we ask ourselves, how could this be misunderstood? Most of the time we don't, right? We just write and we think everybody will understand it. Because when we do something, whether we are writing or speaking, we are thinking of our ego, our internalized, not ego as in um, I feel good or I feel bad. I'm talking about the ego of the person. He writes or he speaks from his personal point of view. Usually we do that. But sometimes we don't ask ourselves the question, could this be misunderstood? All right. So it is a good idea to take a step back from your writing and read it from the audience point of view. Read our writing or our text or our documents and think of who is going to read this and what might they be thinking or how might they interpret this writing. And of course, the next point there, we look for words with multiple meanings and replace them with more precise alternatives. Sometimes we use a word that's got an ambiguous meaning or a word with, we like the word because we personally like it, so we use it, but it could mean more than two or three things. It's important to use a word with more precise alternatives. When we describe a process, we use sequencing, transition words like first, second, or next, right? And this, of course, helps the reader follow your text, whatever you are writing. So transition words is important there. And lastly, double check your work and make your writing as clear as possible. The fourth thing is online tools. Okay, we always get nowadays we have hundreds and hundreds of online tools. We can find anything anywhere, but we have all these nice apps that we can use, and there's plenty of tools that offer assistance. This is just an idea. These are just examples. I'm sure some of us are used to it. Some of us are familiar with this, and some of us might not particularly like these particular tools. But keep using the tools that you feel works for you. For example, Easy Word Counter, that to check the length of your writing. State of Writing is another site with helpful writing guides. The Grammarly, I think it's probably one of the mostly used ones. Is anyone using Grammarly recently? Or does anyone use Grammarly? It's a browser extension and it helps you with your grammar and spelling and everything from WordPress to email. And it also sends weekly reports. Can I get some feedback on how you feel about Grammarly? Because I have it on my laptop and I become quite irritated with it sometimes. Do any of you share the same feeling? Does anyone have the same sentiments like me about Grammarly? It's quite useful, but you do get irritated, yeah? Yes, Sunny says you do get irritated. What happens with me if it's very useful and it underlines in red and it gives me the proper alternative. But sometimes, especially when I'm grading papers, I use short notes in the side column, and sometimes I just need to write short notes as feedback to the student, and Grammarly would interfere there. Sometimes I just talk to myself and I actually speak to Grammarly and tell him, can you please shut your mouth? Because it can become quite irritating. But let's not deny the fact it is a very useful thing, right? Cite it in is another one for to cite your sources correctly. That's also a useful tool. And of course, last but not least is AWC, the Eli Writing Center at KAU. www.ku.mywconline.com. Make use of the AWC. They are there for you. Use it as often as you can, right? Use it till they break. It's important because they are there for you. It doesn't cost anything, and they are there. You can, well, now with the pandemic, we don't have open, uh, what do you call, workshops and open tutorials, walk-ins, but you can book anytime. And you can also check who's available and who do you want to sit with to check any kind of writing. All right. So the fourth one is online tools. And then the fifth one is be detailed from the get-go. Nothing is worse than having to send emails back and forth all day trying to clarify the details. When I was working as in the management team about 10 years ago at Vodafone in South Africa, it would take sometimes weeks to finalize a decision or to draw up a policy or a procedure simply because we move back and forth, back and forth. And 100 emails or memos or meetings later, we would finally agree on something because right at the beginning, it wasn't clearly written. So it can be quite frustrating to send emails back and forth to try to get clarity on something, right? And of course, we give readers everything they need so they don't have to email back by asking for more info. How many times do we send an email back asking for more info? Many times, right? Or to clarify details because we were not clear right at the beginning. So a potential client or coworker, it can be quite frustrating for them to send that's far too general to be useful, far too general. When we send something that's very general, it can be frustrating for the reader, for your colleague, for your coworker, for your uh, manager that you have to send something to, and they're not getting the point immediately. So make sure that we are quite detailed from the beginning. All right. The sixth one is to watch your tone. Now, when we speak, we usually use tone, right? And it doesn't tone doesn't just matter when you speak face to face with people. It of course influences your writing, and sometimes you can hear that person speaking while you're reading it, right? Sometimes we can even get an idea if that person is either agitated or happy or friendly or polite. So when they are writing, people can tell whether you are curt or rude or unfriendly. So a friendly tone is always advisable and use a friendly tone while you're writing because this encourages readers to pay attention while being courteous to them. There's nothing, it costs us nothing to be courteous in our writing. And sometimes we want to get a point across and we feel we don't have to be courteous or we feel we have to be blunt and outright to the point because sometimes we are agitated or sometimes it might be a pressing issue, but there are ways and means around our writing. We can do it by being friendly, right? Yes, Akram, you say tone means right to sound. Yes. When you hear me speak right now, right? You can hear me, Akram, right? When you hear me speak to you, you can hear a tone, right? So sometimes you hear people speak and you will say, hi, good day, how are you? When somebody will speak to you and say, could you please switch that off? There's different tones, right? But now what about writing? We can't hear the writing, can we? But the word usage, what words we are using, that sets the tone for writing. Is everybody clear on the tone when we talk about tone in writing? Okay, good. Any questions so far? Are we all good there. Oh yeah, Fatima, that's a very interesting point that you raised there. One part-time, one time, one of the staff called the student disrespectful because she was writing in all caps. Why would you think that would be disrespectful? Does anyone know why writing in caps would be thought as disrespectful?
Yes, because she appeared like she's shouting or yelling at them.
Yes, of course, because my text box seems to be in Arabic. Give me a second. All right, there we go. Right. Oh, sorry. Right. But now, if I say to somebody, just check the chat box there, I'm actually shouting, right? So whenever you use caps, you are shouting, right? And of course, the font would be in lowercase. But if it's in uppercase or in capital letters, that's shouting. In the same way, when it comes to your font color, we usually use a soft color, or generally for business purposes and for professional writing, we will always use black. But have you ever seen people write something in a red? They are actually very angry, right? Yes, Awad. When you use exclamation punctuation in the wrong place, of course, people would do that. And sometimes, if somebody doesn't get the message, I like to do that. And of course, I will only use it amongst friends or family. And sometimes, if I know a student very well, I'll do that. Good. So our tone is important there, right? It encourages the reader to pay attention. The seventh one, appropriate language. What is appropriate? What is not appropriate? Right? We know what to do there. Levels of formality. There are different levels of formality. When we are going to write something that we know a management team is going to read, or at university, we're going to write a letter to the dean of the faculty, or I'm going to write a note for all the students. Am I going to use the same level of formality? Of course not, right? So we're writing the style that our audience expects and that fits the purpose of whatever we are writing. So there's different levels of formality there. And then a very common thing used by corporate companies, in most companies, people use in-group jargon. And of course, the jargon refers to specialized language used by groups or of like-minded individuals. When we all in the same field of work, we have certain words that we use. For example, engineers would use certain words that only they use all the time. Doctors use certain words or medical terminology that only they use certain times. So when you're using group jargon, we can use it in the same group, but we don't use it for a general audience. So I cannot use a jargon or group jargon pertaining to writing or pertaining to literature for a general group, like in a discussion like this, for example. Right? So it's important. I would actually advise to avoid jargon at all times. Right? Sometimes when it's a small group and your audience and you know your audience very well, yeah, no problem then. But remember, we must keep it as professional as possible. And of course, slang and idiomatic expressions is not a good thing. So avoid using it at all, especially in general academic writing, right? In any kind of writing, professional writing or academic writing in general, avoid slang, avoid idiomatic expressions. Deceitful language, of course, and euphemism, that is a big no-no. So we avoid using euphemisms. We sometimes use words that veil the truth, such as collateral damage or bite the dust. And we just expect people to think it's okay, it's fine, right? And any kind of deceitful language should not be used in our professional writing. A biased language is a very fine line. It's a very sensitive issue, right? So nowadays, we don't know when we are biased, when we sound biased or not, right? So we avoid using biased language, including language with racial, ethnic, group, or gender bias, right? So a lot of males like to use a certain biased language against a female, and likewise, some females like to use a gender bias language or jargon, even if you like, against males. And of course, ethnic groups, different races, nationalities, people use biased language, and that is a big no-no. Stay away from it at all times. All right, we have a question there. Akram, your question is jargon, right? Is that what it means? You want to know what jargon means? Jargon are words that you use, specialized words that people use in a certain field, and you only use those words, and that is called jargon, right? So when you talk about movies, we talk about the first act, the plot, the main director, and what else is there? The scene, the setting. Those are all jargon pertaining to movies, right? Medical staff would use a certain type of word or a lot of words, and that is all called jargon, right? But sometimes we have in-group jargon, like only the people working in that department, in the sales department of a company, or people working in technology, only they will use that same kind of jargon. But when we write a professional document, we expect the audience to understand the jargon, and then we're not sure if everybody's going to understand it. Is that a bit more clear, Akram? Are you okay there? Does that answer your question, Akram? All right, good. Fatima has a question. Aren't idioms okay in academic writing? It depends on your idiomatic expression that you are using. If you are using it in a, you have many, many idiomatic expressions. In professional writing and even in academic writing, I wouldn't advise it. But sometimes you want to use an example or introduce a topic, or you want to use it as the hook in your thesis statement. It's perfectly fine. You can use it as long as you don't use biased language or slang. But I suppose it can be used as a hook, maybe as an opening to get people's attention. That's fine. All right. And the eighth one, always edit and proofread, right? We like to make this mistake at a cost, and sometimes it costs us, right? We're surprised. Many professionals skip this. No matter what we are writing, make sure that it's properly proofread and edited before it's sent, especially in companies, or especially in the workplace. Before we send something, check it, double check it, ask somebody to check it for you. A single letter in the wrong place, in the wrong word can lead to embarrassment later. I've watched a lot of online educational workshops, and I've been in meetings where people do presentations many, many times in the last few months, and a single word is in the wrong place, or there was a misspell, right? And it gives you another word. And sometimes it was quite funny, and sometimes it can be quite embarrassing. So we need to try to avoid that at all times. And of course, spell check doesn't catch everything all the time. So make sure that we read our writing very carefully. Right, so improve our writing skills at a glance again, just to glance over it again, brush up on basic principles, and when you write like it is your job. Practice regularly. Read more. Reading helps a lot, right? You develop an eye for effective writing. Join a workshop. Well, you guys are doing that right now. Meet up, take a writing class. You are attending these workshops, and it is helping you a lot, right? And analyze it. Take some time to analyze the writing that you admire, somebody else's writing. Outline your own writing, edit your writing, and find somebody who's patient, right? An editor who is very patient. Eliminate any unnecessary words from writing. And remember that first drafts are often bad. It's not going to be perfect the very first time. If it means you're going to rewrite it, do it again. Review our work and see how I've grown. Has anyone looked at writing? Has anyone of us looked at our writing maybe a year ago, 2 years ago? And we can see how we develop. If I clean off my computer, my laptop, and I looked at files that I want to delete, and I think, what, let me see, what is this all about? It's something that was written in 2005. And I came across an essay that I wrote in 1998. Can you believe it? And when I looked at it, I was utterly disgusted. I thought, my God, I thought at that time I had completed my English degree, and I thought I was so good. And I looked at it and I was utterly disgusted. I thought, what the heck was I thinking? Right? Because we don't look at it. And every time, and if you write your best writing today, in 3 years from now or 5 years from now, you're going to look at it and you're going to improve again. So it always improves, right? So look at writing that we wrote a while ago, and it's very different. Yes, yes, Fatima, thank you. That's a very good point you're raising there. People underestimate the importance of proofreading. Yes, we come across an email that we sent. You know, if I go through my old files before I moved to this country, and I go back home and I go through old files I want to scratch out, and I look at company memos and emails and written documents when I worked for a corporate company before, and I look at the writing and I think, my God, this is like ridiculous. It can't be. That cannot be me. But it is me. I wrote it. So yeah, it's good to always look back. Right, so that's to improve our writing skills at a glance there. We want to look at tips for writing good sentences, right? So if you write good sentences, we're on our way to good writing. There are many tips available for us who's looking to craft better sentences. There are many tips available. We will just look at a few, at some important ones. The first one is to avoid long, complex sentences. Overly complex sentences doesn't make a sophisticated sentence writing, right? Sometimes a simple sentence, it can pack a powerful punch. We can say something with a few words in one sentence that's quite powerful, as opposed to somebody who writes a few paragraphs, right? We eliminate fluff, and of course, we adjust the syntax to fit our writing style and target audience. Have you ever read documents or articles and people are writing stuff, pages full, and they are writing a lot, they are saying a lot of things, but they are actually saying nothing at all. Or sometimes it comes down to one point. So now we're looking at a complex sentence, the example there on the screen. I'm extremely zealous about increasing my knowledge and integrating my accomplished, skillful expertise to this viable writing workshop. Sounds fancy, doesn't it? If I want to impress some friends, I will write it like that. But what I'm actually just saying is, at the bottom here, I'm passionate about learning more by adding my expertise to this workshop. More concise, more to the point, right? Because sometimes we use these fancy adjectives and we want to use it, overuse it, and people get lost along the way. Right, Awad, very good point there, Awad. Yes, that is a very good point that you're making there. Fatima, I'm not sure what you mean by if you will never know if you're really good at writing. Can you clarify a little bit there? I'm not sure. I think I get your point, but I'm not sure if I got it correctly. Are you saying that you're never going to know if you're a good writer? Is that what you are saying? You can hear me, right? Oh, yeah, we're talking about Awad is talking about the word count. Yes. You know, I tell students this a lot. Word count is important. Um, Everybody's not going to count every single word. If you are required to write 500 words, fair enough. You know you're going to use a few paragraphs for that. And you know how many sentences you're going to be. You're not going to count your sentences. But if you know on average, some sentences have 5 words, some sentences have 13 words in one sentence. On average, I always say on average, there's about 10 sentences in 10 words in a sentence. And if you have 10 words in a sentence, on average, of course, not every sentence has the same amount of words, and you have maybe 10 sentences, you roughly have 100 words, right? So if you're going to have 50 sentences, you're roughly going to have 500. But it's not about the word count when it comes down to that. When you're instructed to write so many words, use your ideas and what you're going to write. Don't write words for the sake of counting the words or for the sake of using it. By all means, yes, use good adjectives, use constructive adjectives to support your nouns, and use good adverbs to support your verbs. And your sentences might be stronger and a bit longer, but it's not about the words, it's about the idea and stuff that you are writing about and what you are writing about. And just to come back to Fatima's point there, I'm worried that you say you'll never know if you're really good at writing. Let me tell you something. You are always a good writer. Every single one is always a good writer, right? So we need to tweak a little bit here and there, and we're learning all the time how to do different styles of writing. And we do persuasive writing, argumentative essays, and of course, we do research proposals. And that makes us all the better all the time. But remember, when you write, that is what you are saying. And everybody is a good writer all the time. You are just going to put some more trimmings on it. All right. Yes, please keep that in mind. So avoid long and complex sentences. The second one, we use concrete rhetoric. So when we're trying to inspire movement or change, we don't want to say something as sort of. It is kind of important, it is sort of important, especially when you're trying to get people to donate to a cause or promote an event, right? We use direct language to deliver a strong image. So we want to convey significance and we want to create an emotional appeal. So whatever the point is, it should be the audience's biggest priority. Right. So use concrete rhetoric. Let's look at that quickly. What do we mean by concrete rhetoric? So as we know, rhetoric is a technique of language using effectively, persuasively, right? So we use language effectively and persuasively in spoken or written form. So that is rhetoric, the technique of rhetoric. Okay, it is an art of discourse, and rhetoric also studies and employs various methods to convince, to influence, and to please an audience. How do we do that? So we know what it is, but now how do we do it, right? So remember concrete rhetoric. So rhetoric itself is to use language effectively, persuasively in spoken or written form, and it is used to convince, influence, and to please an audience. For example, these sentences that you can see on the screen, how did this document get here? That's an example of rhetoric. That's a rhetorical question. It doesn't require an answer, right? What are you doing here? That's a rhetorical question. It doesn't require an answer. So a rhetorical question to convince others that the document does not belong here. There's an example of a rhetorical question. The other one is, here comes the Einstein of our company, or here comes the Einstein of our university. It's an allusion to Albert Einstein to emphasize the intelligence of an employee or of a co-worker or even a friend, right? We use stuff like that. That's a rhetorical statement. And a lot of us use this. I would die if you asked me to speak in front of the university. That is hyperbole, right? So hyperbole is to persuade others not to use force to make to make you do something that you don't want to do. So I use this hyperbole. It's an exaggeration, right? Of course, I'm not going to die, but a lot of people like to use that. I would die if you asked me to speak in front of the university. So we use a lot of hyperboles in our daily lives sometimes, right? And that is also hyperbole used for rhetorical purposes. Is it clear? Do you understand what I mean here? Does anyone have any questions?
No,
Yes.
please, could you simplify or clarify the second point? Here comes the Einstein of our company. I couldn't understand it well.
All right, let me just get back there. I'm speaking there to okay. Right. Here comes the Einstein of our company. What does it actually mean? People that's extremely intelligent. Einstein was probably one of the most famous people that was intelligent, or so they say, right? So he thinks he's like Einstein, or here comes the Einstein of. We emphasize the intelligence of an employee or of a co-worker or somebody that we know, right? So it's an allusion to Albert Einstein, right? So that is used as an example. That's just an example there. Here comes the Einstein of our company, which means here comes the most intelligent person in our company. It's used sometimes as sarcasm, and sometimes it is used to speak the truth. Is it a bit clearer now?
Yeah, got it.
You got it. So maybe we don't use the word Einstein. Maybe we can use anything else, right? If you think about somebody that loves to eat pizza all the time, and his whole life revolves around pizza, and he can't stop eating pizza, right? And then when he comes on or he sits with us and he say, "Oh, here's Pizza Hut coming now," or "Here's Pizza Hut sitting with us." Of course, he is not Pizza Hut, but we're referring to that person in a rhetorical way. Is it a bit clearer now? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, got it.
All right. So these are rhetorical ideas, rhetorical questions and statements that we can use. An example of concrete, we said at the beginning, concrete rhetoric. An example of concrete details are crunching, sound, burn, toast, flashing light, literature review, the incomplete document. So that's very concrete, right? We understand that part. The details, we usually add adjectives to a detail, to the noun, to make it more detailed. So very concrete, crunching sound, flashing light, incomplete document, or literature review. And then the third one is to employ parallelism. Parallelism sentences are easy and more pleasant to read if there's an agreement in their grammatical structure. Sometimes sentences lack parallel structure, right? Or parallel construction, as it's called sometimes. Just generally, parallelism. So the principle is known as parallelism, parallel structure, or parallel construction. And a successful example of that would be the example sentence there. The finale was illogical, rushed, and disappointing. Three adjectives giving three negative things, right? What we mean by parallelism is sometimes when we use, it's not about tenses, but it's about, are we going to use negative words? Are we going to use positive words? Or sometimes we use a continuous verb and a present perfect verb in the same sentence. And that simply is not parallel, all right? So parallelism, it shows us that our grammatical structure should all be the same, right? There must be an agreement in grammatical structure. Let's look at an example. All right. Yeah, 3 sentences. It's lacking on the left side, lacking parallelism. And then we can see how we can change it or what can we do. I'll give you a minute to look at it, right? She likes cooking, jogging, and to read. And the next one that's lacking parallelism is he likes baseball and running. And the last one, the dog ran across the yard, jumped over the fence, and sprinted away. Who of us can look at those sentences? You can type anything in your chat box or you can use the microphones to give us an idea how to make it more parallel.
Could I speak?
Yes, please, you can go ahead.
The first example here, she likes cooking, jogging, and reading.
Yes. Oh, yes, very good. She likes cooking, jogging, and reading. Instead of putting the infinitive there, to read, and that would lack parallelism completely, right? Very good there. Thank you. Any other ideas? I have a hand up there. Is it Bayan?
What about if we say she likes cooking, jogging, and also reading, or she likes many things such cooking, jogging, and reading?
Yes. Instead of say to read, you can rather say reading. Very good. Because you have cooking and jogging there as two gerund, so make the third one a gerund as well. Reading instead of to read. Very good. Thank you. What about the next one? He likes baseball and running.
Playing baseball and running.
Very good. Thank you. He likes playing baseball and running, or he likes to play baseball and to run, or he likes playing baseball and running. Thank you. Very nice. So your parallel constructions are all well intact there. I think everybody got a good has got good correction sense there. What about the third one? The dog ran across the yard, jumped over the fence, and sprinted away. Any ideas? What do you think about this one? It sounds quite perfectly okay, right? Where's the lacking of parallelism in that sentence? It doesn't seem unparalleled to me, and it sounds okay. Yeah. There was a question that I missed there. Sorry, Jane. I think we use to after, like, which sentence are you referring to, Jane? Can we use to? Sentence two. All right. He likes baseball and running. Right. So he likes playing baseball and running, or he likes to play baseball and to run. Because I've got running as a gerund, so playing would be fitting there, right? But if I want to use the infinitive to, it's fine. Then I will have to say he likes to play baseball, and then I have to say to run. You got that? Yes, Fatima, and sprinted away in the street, maybe. Very good thinking. Very good thinking. Thank you. Why do you say in the street, or why do you say into a place, any place? Because the parallelism that's lacking there is at the end, you just say sprinted away where, ran away where. The dog ran across the yard, definite place, right? Jumped over the fence, another place, and sprinted away. So the lacking of parallelism would be there to sprinted down the street, sprinted down the alley, ran down the street, ran down the alley, because you've got across the yard, over the fence, and the last one down the alley or down the street. You got that? Okay, two previous parts, Fatima, you say it's more descriptive. Yes, it's more descriptive. And then the last one, make it descriptive as well. Thank you. That was very good. Looking for parallel construction there. Here's some of the examples, ideas that you might. These are the exact things that you came up with. She likes cooking, jogging, and reading, or she likes to cook, jog, and read. And he likes playing baseball and running, or he likes to play baseball and to run. The dog ran across the yard, jumped over the fence, and sprinted down the alley or sprinted down the street. Very well done. Thank you very much for your cooperation there. The fourth one we're looking at is mind your grammar. Of course, we cannot reiterate this more clearly that grammar is always a critical part of any kind of writing, right? So best sentences don't suffer from things like passive voice or run-on sentences or typos sometimes, right? Sometimes we accidentally write incomplete sentences and we form fragments while editing or rewriting. This happens a lot. So let's make sure that we identify any incomplete sentences that may be lurking in throughout your writing. Sometimes we forget to go back to another, especially when we have a few pages to write, especially when it's a long piece of writing. We make changes and sometimes we forget to go back, right? Proper grammar helps give a more polished feel. There's always no clearer way of putting it, but grammar, of course, is the most important thing in any kind of writing. We know this, we don't even need to put it as a point in the presentation here. And then punctuation, the fifth one, properly punctuate. We ensure that our periods, commas, hyphens, its punctuation tools are implemented correctly. Even if we just advice blogging or we're writing for a group of readers online, we want our writing to appear sophisticated. And of course, it must be taken seriously. And at all times, pay attention to punctuation. Sometimes we forget to do it, and this whole sentence run into one paragraph because we forgot. And the sixth one, practice writing. It only happens with practice. We can only improve if we practice our writing all the time. Writing exercises, focus on sentence structure and how to phrase ideas. Always do any kind of writing. Take a piece of paper, use your laptop, your mobile phone, use any tool that you have, and just start writing anything. And that gives you it improves your writing. So the more we practice, the better we'll become, right? All the time. So talking about practice, let's look at these sentences. We want to make these sentences more concise. So there are five, right? Anyone that wants to look at anyone, you can use a microphone or you can use your chat box. These sentences are not very concise. How can we make it more concise? The first one, in spite of the fact that our budget for advertising is now higher, our sales figures have not gotten any better. How can we make that more concise? Take a minute or two to look at it and see how it can become more concise.
Maybe increasing our budget doesn't affect our sales.
That's quite good. Yeah, increasing our budget. What about sales figures have not become any better? Just repeat it again. I didn't hear the last part.
Hasn't positive effect on our sales figures.
Yes, or maybe it had uh, no effect on our sales figures, or it has not improved. Maybe it has not gotten any better, so it means it has not improved, right? But very good there. Just shorten it. Any other ideas for that one? What about the second one? In the event of an emergency, such as fire or earthquake, please exit the building as soon as you possibly can. Very detailed, very clear also, but can we make it more concise? Our very good sentence there. Our sales has still not improved despite the high budget of advertising or advertisement. Very good. You've got the idea there. Muhammad says our sales did not get better, although we increased our budget. That's actually quite concise. What about number two? In the event of an emergency such as fire or earthquake, please exit the building as soon as you possibly can. Usually we see this all over, right? In public places. And usually you will see written in English, in case of emergency, right? This is just a bit more detail in the event of an emergency. Or more concise, we can just say, in case of emergency, please exit the building. Instead of saying as soon as you possibly can, we can replace it with
Could
one word.
I share, teacher?
Yes.
Uh, in the emergency situations, you can go from the buildings quickly to save your life.
Yeah, that can work. But you are just using different words to say the same thing. But when we want to make it concise, we can replace sometimes a few words with one word. For example, as soon as you possibly can, we can say immediately. Exit the building is fine, that is definite. Or in case of emergency, that's also good. And then we have some in the chat box there. Please evacuate the building in emergency. Very good, Fahad. In case of emergency, please exit the building as soon as you can. Muhammad, very nice. In emergencies, please exit the building ASAP, Fatima. Very good. All of it is very good, right? So you have an idea how to make it more concise. We currently have several available job openings for a variety of positions in our sales department. We have several job openings, available job openings for a variety of positions in our sales department. So we can cut out several. We can just say we have. We can cut out currently because otherwise we won't notify people about it if it's not current. So we'll say we have available job positions or job openings. In which department are we looking at? In our sales department, right? Instead of for a variety of positions in our sales department. When people apply for the job, then they will find out what positions are available anyway, right? Anybody has another idea for that one?
Hello,
Yeah,
can I share with you?
yes, please do.
Okay, I have a small sentence for this long sentence. We can say we have vacant jobs in our sales department.
Very good. Well done. We can just use that. We have vacant positions or vacant, what was that? Sales positions in our department or vacant positions in our sales department. Nice. That's very concise. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we are hiring is also fine for different sales positions in the department. Right. Thank you. Well done. And then the fourth one, the reason I'm having trouble with my computer is because the antivirus has not been updated at all recently. Do I need to say the reason? Can I just say what's wrong? What is the main problem here? There's something wrong with my computer, so I'm having trouble with my computer, right? Because the antivirus has not been updated at all recently. What is a quicker way to, more concise
Out
way?
of date. Out of date.
There we go. Thank you very much. Well done. Out of date, right? So I'm having trouble with my computer because the antivirus is out of date or outdated if we want to use it like that. Thank you. That's good. The fifth one, we consider the candidate to be a very good fit for either of the two positions. We don't need to say either of the two positions. When we use that word, it's two, so we will say either position, right? When we say either position, I am talking about two things there. So I can replace it with either position. And what about we consider the candidate to be a very good fit? Any ideas? What about we think? Or we consider the candidate, or we think the candidate would be a very, would be good, or would be a good fit for either position. When we say either position, I mean one of the two. Or the candidate is a good fit. Thank you very much. That's a nice one. Qualified, yes, we can use qualified. The candidate is qualified for the position. That's perfect. Thank you. Yes, Muhammad, we need enough qualified candidates for the vacant positions. Nice. Thank you for your participation there. That was well done by everybody. Some possible ideas that we have in this on the next slide. These are the sentences that you actually used. Despite increasing our advertising budget, sales have not improved. In case of emergency, please exit the building immediately. We have several job openings in our sales department. I'm having trouble with my computer because its antivirus is out of date. we think the candidate would be a good fit for either position. Thank you, that's well done. So these are not set in stone, of course. Most of you gave better concise sentences that's on the screen here, right? So remember to keep it concise. All right, so what about formal and informal? When we think every day, right now, this very minute, we are thinking of something. I think some of us are probably thinking of sleeping. Some of us are thinking, can this end now? I'm so tired. Right? So, do we think formally? Do we think informally? So, our own personal thoughts are usually informal, right? I
Informal,
mean,
yeah.
yeah, we don't think in a formal way, but we use formal language when writing professionally. And usually, when we write professionally, it is our thoughts that comes to mind, right? There's an informal idea of a sentence. The managers showed their disappointment by leaving the meeting room at once. The main problem seemed to be about salaries. Very clear that it's not very formal. A more formal way, in the bottom sentence, the management team demonstrated their dismay by departing from the conference room immediately. The principal concern appeared to be about remuneration, just another word for salary, right? So that's a bit more formal. Usually companies would use the word remuneration instead of using the word salary, right? HR departments like to use that word. And it's just another formal way of using the word salaries. So you see the difference between the informal and the formal structure of the sentences. Are you still okay there? All right, so the 7 essentials of professional writing. The first thing that we need to remember is we don't need to even look at this, but we know structure is quite important, right? It's fundamental on how easily it is absorbed and understood by our audience. And of course, we know by now that we need to make clear paragraphs for that. So good communication should have 3 structural elements. This, again, like I said before, we don't even need to look at it because we know an opening, a body, and a closing, right? Like an introduction, a main body paragraph or paragraphs, and a closing or a conclusion, right? If we don't have that structure, our readers are going to get lost in it. That's a typical given, right? So the second one is clarity. Let's always be clear. Confused messages, it ends up being ignored. Stick to the issue at hand. Do not add extra information unless they are absolutely fit in with the original message. Any kind of extra information. When we send documents or emails in a company, we create separate communication for any ancillary issues for support or supplementary issues. Anything else, we will add it in as a separate document, right? So it has always be clear, and clarity is the most important thing there. Consistency, the third one, we need to be consistent. Always the same. Don't change positions from one to the other. Don't say something like this today and tomorrow we say something else. I think in companies, wherever we work, a head of a department or a manager that we work under, or a director or a supervisor, when they change their positions, we become uneasy. We don't know where we are, and we don't know what to expect, and we don't know if we can trust that person in a leadership position, because when you change your tone or your position or your fundamental thought processes at any time, it's going to be unclear and it's not consistent. So readers might mistrust your writing, and they are unlikely to agree on the message that you intended to send them. So consistency is the key there. And of course, plain language. Now, what the advantages of plain language? There's no ambiguity. It's faster to read. It's faster to write. And the guidelines is simply to simplify your word choice. Shorten your sentences, shorten your paragraphs, use the active voice, and use lists, like numbering lists or points, or put stuff in a list form instead of, for professional writing, of course. For reports, we're going to use lists. But of course, when we write a argumentative or an academic essay, we have to write in paragraphs, right? But for professional language, for business, especially in the business world, plain language is the most important thing. Simplify everything, shorten it, and be very concise. Relevancy is very important. Make sure that your writing has a purpose. We sometimes read stuff by people who write, even in blogs, we see it often, and they have no purpose in their writing. They're just writing for the sake of writing. Make sure that that your writing makes a point and it supports that point with relevant information. Of course, give examples and reference it properly. And it must be information that is connected. Okay, disconnected ideas are not going to go well for the reader. He's going to just put it aside and not read it anymore because it's not connected. So relevancy is quite important. Make sure that it has a purpose and it makes a point. And of course, again, coming back to concise, to be concise. Have you ever heard of the KISS rule? And we're not talking about kissing at all here. We just mean the KISS rule. In corporate companies, they employ the KISS rule most of the time, especially in business or corporate emails. And the KISS rule is simply to keep it short and simple. Keep it short and simple. Use short, commonly used words. Use strong, precise verbs and nouns. And of course, remove redundant phrases. Yes, plain means simple. Yeah, short and simple. Fatima, you had something there before and I missed it. I'm sorry. The first sentence doesn't sound very informal. I'm not sure. I think you talked about the previous slide, maybe. No, no, no. If you're writing an essay about yourself, think about who is your audience going to be? Who are you writing it for? Well, it is not for business purposes, right? It is descriptive writing. So if you use a descriptive essay, you are not going to use you're not going to make it too simple. But it depends on who is your audience, who's going to read it, and are they going to read the words that you write, right? Are they going to understand everything, and so on? Oh, the previous one for formal and informal structure. Yeah, you're right. Um, it doesn't sound very informal, but just to make it more formal, just to add some more words. That was just an example to see how we can make a sentence more formal. The first one wasn't that informal, right? But it was just an idea to see how we can make it more formal than the previous one. Yeah, oh, you're right too. Well, that is in a cover letter or to be accepted into the university, or you write about yourself. Yes, be detailed, right? Be descriptive, but also keep it professional. Don't use emotional thoughts in there, and don't use any unnecessary or too long or too many adjectives in your writing there. Keep it as professional as possible, but make sure that the message gets across. And okay, you're welcome. Commonly used words, precise verbs and nouns, remove redundant phrases. Phrases sometimes we repeat again and again. Don't use stuff that is unnecessary, that doesn't need to be there. Sometimes we think, oh, I want this there, but then there's something else that's also there. So make a choice and make sure that we remove any redundant phrases that's been there unnecessarily. And the persuasive one, rhetorical appeal, a very important part, a very important tip is to be persuasive in your writing. There are three things that we're looking at: ethos, logos, and pathos. So the ethos is to be credible, Logos is to be logical, and pathos is to appeal to emotions. First one, ethos, to be credible. It makes your claims more believable, of course, right? Credibility is quite important. So we improve our ethos by writing with clarity. In red, the sentence in red, as a doctor, I'm qualified to tell you that this treatment will generate the best results. That is credibility as a doctor, right? Because he's credible. He's qualified to tell you anything about a medical situation. The logos, the logical part, is appeal to the rationality of the audience. Okay? Appeal to reason. The data is perfectly clear. The evidence points directly to the result. We cannot argue with that. That's very logical, right? Data, evidence, and the results. Statistically, logic, right? And there's proof, of course. That would be the logos part of being persuasive. The pathos part, the appeal to emotions, we correctly address the feelings about the subject. You'll make the right decision because you have a good heart, right? What am I doing there? I'm appealing to person's emotion or the person's feelings, right? Of course, we cannot misuse this, but we usually use appeal to emotion by how people feel. I know that this workshop might be a bit long, it might be boring for some of you, but I know that you are such good students that you are actually going to make the most out of it, and you will definitely improve your writing from now onwards because you can become such good writers. Did you understand that clearly? What did I just do? I appealed to your emotions, didn't I?
Little bit lost.
Are you a bit lost?
Yep.
Okay, put me in the picture. What can I clarify for you? This whole thing about being persuasive, right? So if we want to persuade our reader in our writing, we use credibility, we use logic, and we appeal to emotion, right? So in red, the sentences in red are just examples of those type of sentences. Credible, as a doctor, I'm qualified to tell you, that is somebody that's credible, right? You will convince, you will believe him. Okay, you will persuade you because he's the doctor and you are the patient. So he's qualified to tell you that the treatment is whatever it might be, right? And that's credibility. Logical data is very clear. The evidence points directly to the result, and that is appeal to the rationality. So they are logical. It makes sense. So that is another way how you can persuade your reader. The last one, how you persuade it, is to appeal to emotions. And this is something we do all the time. Okay, you'll make the right decision because you have a good heart. You are such a good person. I know that you will do it for me. That is pathos, that is appeal to emotions. Can anybody give an example of any one of these, credible or logical or appeal to emotions? Is it a bit more clear? Are you still a bit lost there? I get worried when people are getting lost because maybe I'm not clear enough then.
No, it's about just emotions. About logic, credibility, and logically, it's fine. But I can't bind them with formal writing with emotions. Sometimes it doesn't make a
No,
sense to me.
not in all situations. No, of course, not in all situations. But if you are going to try to persuade people to support a cause or to support a charity or maybe
I got it. Yeah.
something like that, then you can appeal to. You're not going to appeal to emotions in a business setting, of course, right? But some
Yeah.
managers use this all the time. Some company executives like to appeal to the emotions of the employees and say to them, thank you for your hard work. You have shown great productivity and very professional. And as you know, the company is doing its financial quarter. We need all hands on deck. And because you are such good workers or such good employees, we know for sure that you will join us in working 2 hours extra every day. It's just the management tool, right? That's just the
Right.
management. It's a persuasive tool.
Also, when we writing the dedication in thesis or dissertation, the dedication maybe contains the appeal to emotion, right? With heartfelt, with thanks, with advisor, supervisor, or maybe family, right?
Yes, that's correct. Absolutely. I like Muhammad Saeed's, I use that all the time. Muhammad Saeed, I am your dad. Believe me, this is not right. That's definitely appealing to emotion of the child. I know I use that a lot. But thank you for the input there. That was well done. So you are more clear on that, right? Are you? It makes a bit more sense, right? The appeal to emotion. All right. So in conclusion, we have looked at the 7 essential elements to successful professional writing: the structure, the clarity, the consistency, use plain language, relevancy, be concise all the time, and of course, last but not least, be persuasive. And always remember, in the business world, professional writing or effective communication, it helps leadership make informed decisions and it advises clients. And of course, it has to comply with state or regulatory bodies. Wherever in the world we are, whichever country we are in, when we do legal documents, when we have policies and procedures drawn up for a company or institution, it has to abide by the rules of that particular state or that country or that province, wherever they're in, legally bind. So just the last word there, the tip, don't write to impress, write to communicate. This is specifically for business professional writing, right? Of course, we're going to write to impress maybe for other reasons, for other kind of writing, then we can do that. But for professional business writing, we write to communicate, and that's the main thing to remember. All right, that brings us to the end there. I would like to thank anybody, any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Radwan, for this outstanding, exceptional, and valuable presentation and the professional presentation. We really learned a lot from you and from this presentation because we all are professional and we are going to write professionally, inshallah. So let's now open the floor for questions and answers. And also, I'm going to share with you now 3 links. So the first one is for the evaluation form. Please complete it to get the certificate. The second one is our YouTube channel. Please share, subscribe, and the third one here is to make appointment, as Brother Ridwaan mentioned in his presentation. If you need any help with your writing, you can just go to the third website here, ku.mywconline.com, and book an appointment with Mr. Ridwaan, with anyone else in the writing center, and we'll be happy to help you out with your writing. So now you can write your question in the chat or raise your hand, open your mic. So thank you again. Thank you, Brother Ridwaan. Thank you all for attending this professional workshop. And let's see if you have any questions. And thank you, Brother Kamal. Our next workshop, inshallah, on Wednesday is going to be about technological tools for writing. Inshallah,
Thank
start
you very
around
much.
8:30, inshallah. Let's
And
see.
thank you for allowing this workshop. And thank you for everybody's participation and cooperation and for your patience mostly.
Many thanks to you also.
You're most welcome.
May I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so if I will write an essay about like my opinion and something, should I stuck on one point of view, or may I like use more than one point of view?
You can use as many point of views as you want, right? But it depends on what your instructions are. If you are going to use two point of views, then put it into separate paragraphs. Or if you're going to use one point of view and another one as an opposing point of view, that is also perfectly fine.
But that will not affected me, like I'm not consistent in my writing, right?
No, you. When we talk about consistency, one of the slides talked about consistency. We were referring to somebody in a leadership position who takes a stance on something, right?
Mm,
So some people might preach something about um, health issues, and the next time they write again, they say something the opposite, something different. That is not being consistent, right? Well, we're
yeah,
referring mostly there to management teams mainly that could change their viewpoint sometimes. And
yes.
of course, when it comes to your own personal writing an essay, for example, also be as consistent as you want. But remember, you can outline two different opinions or two different views, right? Or more than that, as long as you are sticking to the main topic. So one
Yeah.
topic might have a one view and it might have an opposing view as well. So
Okay,
that should
thank
still
you.
be consistent, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome.
All right. So I think since there are no more questions, so let's finish. So thank you, Brother Radwan. Thank you all for attending the presentation, and we will see you, inshallah, on Wednesday. So stay tuned, inshallah. The certificates will be sent, inshallah, within 24 to 48 hours, and we will upload this presentation within, inshallah, 24 hours to our YouTube channel. So thank you again. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you, Dr. Basim. Thank you, everybody.